Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here for this news conference. In December of last year, I offered my resignation to the Holy Father on the occasion of my 75th birthday, which you're expected to do. And so for the past 4 months, we've had a diocesan prayer praying for a new bishop. And in part, we prayed for a pastor who will please you by his holiness and will show you your watchful care. Today, the Holy Father accepted my resignation and appointed Bishop-elect Thomas Zinkula as the 9th Bishop of Davenport. I will continue on as Apostolic Administrator of the Diocese until the Bishop-elect is ordained and takes possession of the diocese on June 22nd. And so it's with great joy and with great pleasure I'd like to introduce to you, for the answer to my prayers, Bishop-elect Thomas Robert Zinkula.
Thank you for coming to help me celebrate my 60th birthday today. Seriously. So people ask me how to pronounce my last name. Sometimes people kind of are confused by it. So what I say, tell people when I'm in a new parish and new group of people, it's easy to remember. Think of Dracula, Zinkula, Dracula. He wears black, I wear black. So that's how you'll never forget my name after that. So with regard to the diocesan prayer, I became aware of that after I was appointed or bishop, the new bishop, and so there's a line that people were praying for a pastor who will please you by his holiness. So I mean, there's it looks like maybe there's this halo. It's actually the light reflecting off my bald head. So those prayers will need to continue. I mean, I do my best, but with regard to praying for someone who will show a shepherd who will show us your watchful care, I promise the people from this diocese that I will do my best to care for them, and I'll work hard. And I've always jumped into every assignment I've had and gave it my all, and I certainly will do that here. There's, I think you have my bio. I'm happy to answer questions in a minute about anything that you want to ask about that. I sent an email. I asked Bishop Amos and the Chancery staff to send an email to the priests of Davenport this morning when all this kind of became public. And one thing I said there was that I'm a little anxious, but a lot excited. So I'm a little anxious because I'm very well aware that being bishop is a challenging, kind of daunting ministry, and so, and I'm well aware of my weaknesses and my limitations. So that makes me anxious a little bit, but I'm also a lot excited. I'm very excited too. I like new challenges, new adventures. I'm curious by nature, and so I'm looking forward to getting to know the priests and the deacons, religious, chancery staff, parish lay leaders, and the lay people of the Diocese of Davenport, and I have a lot to learn. I have to learn how to be a bishop. I mean, when you put that big pointy hat, was that the crozier or the mitre? What do you call that thing? When you put that on, when you take it off, and all that. I mean, I don't have a clue. I'm starting to pay attention now. How that works. So, and I need to learn. I need to get to know the people of the diocese and what's going on here, the parishes, and so I've got a lot to learn, and I'll just take it a day at a time, a step at a time. I could talk about lots more things. Actually, one thing I'll talk about, and then happy to take questions. I actually it's like coming home for me to Davenport. My great-great-grandparents on my dad's side came from Bohemia, so this Zinkula is a Czech name, and they settled in Iowa City in 1854. So my story began there, on my dad's side anyway, and my great-grandparents were married at St. Mary's Parish in Iowa City. They eventually kind of started going north a little bit, ended up in Mount Vernon. where I grew up. I was actually baptized in the Davenport Diocese. There's a little Czech parish, Saints Peter and Paul. It was a mission of Solon out in the country, and I was baptized there. My family had helped build that church and everything. My dad's side is all buried across the road in the cemetery. And then when I was, 3 or 4, they transferred over to Mount Vernon because for religious ed and things like that. So there's the Zinkula window in that church there and everything. And then you'll see I played football in high school and college, and people kind of picked up on that a little bit. So the conference that Mount Vernon was in, it was the Eastern Iowa Hawkeye Conference. All of the schools that we played were in the Davenport Diocese. So it was like Solon, West Branch, Wilton, Durant, West Liberty, Mid Prairie, which I think is Wellman. A brother and a sister went to St. Ambrose. I was told the chantry staff earlier that I remember going to my sister is 2 years older than me, and Bob Hope gave the commencement address. And it was like 40 years ago. Any of you old timers and remember that maybe. So that was cool. I went to law school at the University of Iowa, attended Mass, St. Mary's, and Newman Center, and St. Patrick's, and St. Thomas More back when it was in that part of town. So it kind of feels like coming home in a sense. But I'm also, it's hard for me, to be honest with you, to be leaving Dubuque. It's kind of bittersweet. I'm excited to begin this new thing eventually. I wrap things up back there and get ordained and everything. But I'm grieving as well. Relationships. It's not like they'll end totally, but it's going to be very different. Priests, especially my brother priest from Dubuque, and so I'm excited to get to know, the new the people here and everything. But there's that side of me too. That's kind of a hard thing for me at this point. So the last thing I'll say is I just want to thank Bishop Amos. He's been very gracious in welcoming me, and he came at a difficult time and has done a wonderful job from what I've seen and from what I've heard from people from this diocese. And he's leaving the diocese in a very good place for me to step into it as a baby bishop and kind of get rolling with the thing and figure things out. And so I appreciate that very much. And so, questions? Is that... Okay, well, that's good.
So when a new bishop comes into a diocese, the one thing that people wonder is he going to be a liberal or is he going to be a conservative? So on that spectrum, where would you put yourself?
I have always looked at everything, politics and church things, through the eyes of our Catholic tradition, our Catholic faith. So sometimes you end up over here, sometimes you end up over there. I always try to look at things from where we are at as a church, what our teachings are, and evaluate things from that perspective. So that's where I come from.
So sometimes here or sometimes...
Yeah, you're both. That way you can criticize everything on both sides and speak favorably about different things and different sides.
The fact that you were ordained a little older than what some of the people that would go through college and theology and then be ordained right away, how has that impacted how you look at your ministry, especially the pastoral side of it, having worked and had a job and other activities before entering the seminary?
Yeah, for me, so I was ordained at 33. I was 28 when I felt a very strong call to the priesthood, and this isn't the place to kind of get into that. I can talk about it some other time, but and so I kind of, I was dating, and so I knew what that was like, and I'd done something else. I was an actuary for a year, and then a lawyer for 3 years, and so I knew what it was like to do something else. So I think it was easier for me to discern. I mean, I was pretty sure God was calling me to be a priest from the very beginning. I needed to continue to discern that, but yeah. So I'm not in a position of, I wonder what it would be like to have dated. I wonder what it would have been like to do something else. I did that. So I had some maturity, some life experience to bring to it. And all that also, you can use that in ministry, like the law, just in the sense of you learn how to be a critical thinker and evaluate situations and analyze them and be able to argue, make different sides, and speak and write better, and so all that you can use anywhere, in anything. So that all, it was the path God put me on, and it was no waste of time to go down that path. I can look back, I can see way more clearly how that all worked, how that was getting me to this point here, where I'm standing before you as bishop-elect. So.
People in Dubuque call you awesome dude. Can you respond to?
You're right. People like kids, or kids would say that, and,
Yeah.
no, I don't know what they mean by that. You'd have to ask them.
So Bishop Amos came in at, as you alluded to, a really difficult time, and had big challenge. The challenge was clear, staring him in the face. You coming, it's a better time. What would you see as your challenges? You've had a little time to think about this, or possibly your goals that things you'd like to address.
Right.
You don't have the same.
Yeah, I don't have. Yeah, it's too early for me to kind of have go. For me to. I was speaking with a couple of priests about this yesterday. That for me to say, okay, here's my goals, and here's what we're going to do, and then I could just see me kind of looking back. Where is everybody? It needs to be something we do together and figure out. I don't know. I know obviously more about this diocese than I do about other dioceses, other places, because it's so close. But I still need to learn a lot about things, and we'll do things together. I'm collaborative, and I'd like to, be consultative, and the C words, communicate, and consensus, those kinds of things, and figure things out together. I played sports. I have this team approach to things. That's how I kind of look at things.
As a seminary rector, Monsignor, can you address the concerns in the church about vocations or lack of, in terms of men making decisions to enter or not to enter the priesthood? Is that one of the biggest challenges facing the
Definitely, that's a challenge. Vocations. It's not surprising to me that we don't have as many vocations right now. Where do they come from? They come from vibrant faith communities where people are plugged in and actively practicing their faith. And as we know, there's a lot of people who aren't, that have kind of fallen away. And so it's not surprising that there's not as many seminarians right now. We don't need as many priests because there's not as many people practicing. So, it's how it all works. But yeah, that's definitely something. But I see it turning around. There's more and more guys taking a look at this, and they're solid guys, at least from my experience. And so I'm hopeful, and they're looking for, they're idealistic. They're looking for something to devote their lives to, and they see what's going on in the world. Here's how here's happiness. Here's fulfilling life, and they're like, not really. If they're deep thinkers, and there's maybe something more. That's the kind of guys that we see. And then so so another challenge obviously is that the world's becoming more and more secular, and that's and there's not. There was a study survey or something that came out recently where millennials, 40% of Catholics at a certain age aren't practicing their faith anymore. That's a huge issue for us. And it's not just Catholics, it's other denominations as well, but those are obvious things that we need to take a look at and, address.
Are you, Bishop Amos at various times has looked at different kinds of priests. We have a married priest working in the diocese. Are you open to different types of priests that are allowed by Rome?
Sure, if it's allowed by Rome, right? I was telling a story about somebody recently, since I've been here, last night or this morning, and so my dad was not well for like 3 years or so, and then he kind of declined in health, and he died after Thanksgiving. But he was in the hospital, and kind of towards the end, my mother was there and I was there, and so I wasn't wearing clerics, and this young gal came in, social worker, and my mother just totally out of the blue. It wasn't even, we were talking about something else. My son's a priest, or my son's a Monsignor, mothers. And this gal, social worker, said, so is my dad. I'm like, wow, great, tension off me, onto her. Her dad was a deacon for this diocese, and I can't remember his name. Father Steve Witt, and his wife died, and now he was ordained, and I think he serves in Iowa City, she was saying. So it's like, why not? What the heck?
What are your thoughts, Monsignor, about clusters and parishes where, priests and pastors are being stretched so very thin, and in some instances where it's not even possible to have a daily mass?
Right. Yeah, so I'm very familiar with that. I was in two cluster situations, one in northern Dubuque County. Started out, I was pastor of a little parish. I was working the tribunal as my main gig, and then also doing this parish work on the side. And so I was pastor of parish and sacramental priest for two other parishes. A woman religious who was the leader of the parishes. And so, and then they ultimately added two more, so there were 5. And so while I was there, so I was a part of that whole deal and kind of learned a lot about that. And then I ended up coming back into Dubuque, and I was pastor of a parish in the North End, Holy Ghost. And I was for 2 years, and then they added 2 more, that were a mile apart. And so we had a cluster of 3, and there were 100 funerals a year. I had an associate pastor, so it was a lot of work. And kind of when I was leaving, we merged them. Kind of before I left, we merged them together into one parish. So I've been around that, and Dubuque has been doing this pastor planning of that nature for 2 decades or more. Most of my priesthood. So it's evolved, and we've kind of tried things, and this worked and this didn't work, and I found that every situation is different. You can't do a cookie cutter thing. You got to look at, okay, here's this set of parishes, and here's what's going on. Here's how far apart they are, and here's all these different things, and figure out what works best there.
That's the reason I asked that. Is there concern among brother priests about burnout?
Sure.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, no, there's definitely that's there. We need to name it. We need to work with that and address it. It's interesting that so there is that definitely that's concern. But when there's these surveys of priests in Dubuque, we did a survey, and there's also a national one I saw a while back. Like 95% of the priests say that they love being a priest and their ministry is fulfilling. So there's this thing we need to look at and be careful about with regard to burnout, but then there's also, it's a good life, and that's what I'll tell the seminarians too, so we need to figure it out and be careful about that. And
reflection a little bit what your initial reaction was when this became a done deal.
Yeah. Right. So we were on retreat. The seminarians. We have a retreat over the Palm Sunday weekend. So we were this retreat house in Dubuque, and it was a Saturday afternoon of Palm Sunday weekend, and we had about a 3-hour break. So guys were out playing ultimate frisbee, and I was out. There's a trail. It's this place called Shalom, the Shalom Center, and it's Franciscan's mother house is right there, and they have really great property. There's a trail and everything, and so I was out. I was walking to kind of warm up, and then I was jogged for a half hour, and then I cooled down. So I was out there probably about 2 hours, and came in, and there was a message from Washington D.C. at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and I saw who that would be, and it was from the nuncio, and so he's asked me told me about this assignment, asked me if I would accept this appointment, and he wanted me to give him an answer right away, and I'm trying to think about it a little while and pray about it, and okay, well, how about then tonight, later on? So I was talking to him in the early evening, and then so I'm like, how about like tomorrow? And, you know, and then he says, well, but are you leaning towards it? Like, yes. So I spoke with Archbishop Jacobs and prayed about it, and you know, I'm obedient, and I've always said yes, and it was an easy yes, actually. I mean, recognizing what I was getting myself into, kind of, but you know, but things, you know. But so then, actually, to be honest with you, one of the things that came to mind right away was, so I'm 60. I've been rector for 3 years. I know how to do this. It's going well. You know, I'll do this for a few more years, become pastor somewhere, and kind of finish up my priesthood. I know how to be pastor. I've done that, you know, and then I can retire at 70. Maybe if my health is good, I'll continue on. And then, so it was kind of a nice, easy sort of way to ease out, you know, kind of finish up active ministry. And then it's like, you know, man, this is a whole different thing. You know, I have a lot to learn. It's going to be, you know, a lot of work. There's going to be lots of joys too. Bishop Amos reminds me of that, you know, that there's that side of it too. But and then 75, you can retire. So, so that's, I was thinking about that. Okay, you ready for this thing? And yeah, what the heck? Go for it.